This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Can queer theology embrace and celebrate earthy, bodily, and even erotic imagery of Christianity? The Greek and Roman gods had a robust sexual nature that often drove their stories and actions. Their beauty and physical prowess were a big part of their myth. But the focus was on redemption, sacrifice, and surrender. Naked muscle men and milky-skinned youths as subjects of art were fine, as long as they were in support of something higher, more religious. Honor, strength in battle, and sacrifice were all noble subjects that were used to justify presenting some pretty hot stuff. Additionally, there's a vast collection of stunning examples of nearly not safe for work stuff in our own scriptures, the Jewish and Christian scriptures, and erotic Christian moments can be found. It includes, in our own tradition, Saint Sebastian, Guido Reni, circa 1615, all laid out, Saint Sebastian by Nicolas Regnier, 17th century, and the Flagellation of Christ by Bacchiacca, circa 1512. But we must know that this depiction of the naked male body started to change in the last couple of centuries, especially the more radically conservative faith of the 20th century. The church began to focus on homoerotic rather than just plain erotic for no practical reason. As far as queer theology is concerned, one study shows the root of homophobia in the United States is the condemnation of homosexuality in the church. Since many churches condemn homosexuality, many Americans accept this religiously based homophobia. The queer community can utilize the tenets of liberation theology and other progressive theologies to liberate itself from mainstream theology. In liberation theology, the focus is on a particular community, the oppressed community. In liberation theology, the idea is that God has a preferential option for the poor, and the poor includes anyone who has been marginalized or oppressed. It is therefore a community, a religion, a theology of the people, particularly of oppressed people. And it's a theology of speaking, listening, and asking questions, and being asked questions. It's dialogical. Well, I do love me some liberation theology and other contextual theologies, feminist theology, Murista theology, queer theology, womanist theology, and they all share some components. And a lot of them share this sort of Abelardian Christology where we see the Christ figure as being God suffering with those who suffer, rather than requiring it or suffering being redemptive. So this theology from the margins is very important to me. Well, in the queer community, we are sexual, but I think a lot of that is because we've been sexualized, you know, that we've been identified by that. And so part of how we had to find each other and form community was in sexual spaces. Sex is, even if we got caught, you know, there could be consequences, but if without getting caught, that's what we had. We could come together, we could party, we could play. And out of that, we have developed a very erotic physical ethic, and which is good. I think it's now the gift that we can offer the world. But our folks were sneaking it in always. That's what that art was about. You would see, in Renaissance art, you would see maybe John the Baptist, a little baby John the Baptist with a little baby erection, or a little baby Jesus with a little baby erection. And that was that was a sort of a foreshadowing of the resurrection, but it was also just a way of saying bodies are good, people are good, it's okay to be human. And so we see a lot of that. We see a lot of naked breast in Christian art. We see a lot of times you'll see the beloved disciple, Jesus will be dead, laid out, and the beloved disciple will be at his feet. And feet are often a metaphor actually for genitalia. So there are all of these Easter eggs, all these clues throughout our tradition, and it's sort of become the queer mission to bring all that up, bring all that out. Well, you're just trying to justify. Oh no, not justifying anything, celebrating. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. Not justifying. This is not a defensive situation. You're the one who's defensive now because you're not comfortable with sexuality. You're not comfortable with bodies. You're not comfortable with physical expressions. But we've been sneaking it in forever, and since the gay liberation movement of the late 60s. The Stonewalls in '69, the Metropolitan Community Churches started the year before that. The Homophile Society, I think, was like in the '50s. Like we've been getting there, and since that revolution We're just way more in your face about it. But every woman character Tennessee Williams ever wrote about was a gay man. We've been doing it the whole time. So yeah, we do have a lot to. I think a lot of queer people think that you can be religious and think poorly of yourself, or you can be not religious, and that it's just a zero-sum game. But there's a lot of other options, and you can be. Religion can be liberative. It won't look like your mother's religion, but it can still be faithful. It can still be devout, and it can be body and sex positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that the Bible itself is full of examples of people who have embraced sexuality and who have even used sexuality as a point of liberation. I mean, when you look at the genealogy of Jesus, it is filled with women who have taken control of their power, of their bodies, of their sexuality. I mean, you have people like Rahab, who was a Canaanite prostitute who saves the 2 Canaanite spies when they go into Jericho, and she is brought into the genealogy of Jesus as part of the genealogy of David. You have Tamar, who tricked Jacob into sleeping with her, pretending to be a side road prostitute because Jacob wouldn't allow her to remarry. And she used her power, she used her sexuality to get what she needed, which was a lineage, and she's also part of the genealogy of Jesus. And then you have Ruth, who is part of our own queer liberation theology. She's part of, her and Naomi have this beautiful queer relationship. And she, again, listens to Naomi and uses her power to get what she needs, to get what will continue the line and continue the family system that she was in order to protect Naomi and protect her future. And then we can't forget Bathsheba, who used a awful encounter with David, being seduced by David, but then she ensures with the prophet Nathan that Solomon is the one that gets into, it becomes king. And with Solomon, we have this, the beautiful, we get the Ecclesiastes, we get all this beautiful wisdom, and we get the building of the temple. So there's a lot of power in sexuality. And let's not mention David and Jonathan and the sword. Well, let's do it. Yeah, like, they're naked in the tent. David gives him his sword. Like, there's a lot of eroticism in the Bible that I feel, as Christianity started to move toward, or popular Christianity started to move towards shaming people for sexuality, they completely ignore these moments, beautiful moments that exist in our shared scriptures. And that's problematic because it's about something else. It's not about sex, it's about something else, and I believe it's a form of control and shaming others. Shaming others for being their authentic self. And people, in order to be authentic, they also have to be authentic with their sexuality. And I feel that, the Bible is very open to that in many ways.
There's this. Once you start reading, readers make meaning. So once you start bringing yourself to the text, you find yourself in the text.
Right.
And that's what oppressors have always done. Slaves obey your masters. They've used it for their privilege. Right. But then there's the whole book of Exodus where God is on the side of the enslaved and gets them out. So so bring you to the text, and the text will say something that they missed. They were using it against you, and you can use it for yourself. And once you do that, it just all opens up. You'll just see queer people everywhere. Why is there a naked guy with Jesus in the garden in Mark chapter 14? What is this nakedness about?
Yes.
If you saw 2 guys in a park late at night, and one was so scantily clad that if you tugged on him, he was instantly naked, you'd make some assumptions.
Yeah.
You would just make assumptions about it, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. And there's that exact scene in the Gospel of Mark. My favorite story that almost nobody remembers about is in the book of Jeremiah. This eunuch, this servant, Abimelech, saves the prophet. He's in a well. His enemies have pushed him in the well, just left him to die. And this servant, this high-ranking eunuch, finds him and says, I'll save you. But wait. He doesn't just like crawl down there and get him or get some rope, a bucket from it. Oh, no. He said, hold on. He goes to the palace and he gets some linen, but not the good linen. He gets some old tattered linen. And then he comes and he makes armpit pads for the rope that he lets down. I promise you, the person who thought to make armpit pads for the comfort of his friend, but also thought not to ruin the good linen doing it, if she ain't, I ain't. And you see that a lot when you bring who you are to the text.
Oh my goodness.
Well, and there's the letters from the church fathers talk about Gnostic texts, and there's this secret book of Mark, which has and they talk about the young man in the garden who was half naked was actually. In the secret book of Mark, it's thought to be that he was Jesus' lover, or someone very close to Jesus, who sat also on Jesus' lap, like John did, and just and listened to the master. So there's a lot of that.
Secret is hot. They spend the night together where he learns the mystery of life.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness! Oh, the mystery of life. At least I found you.
And this book is not banned from the library yet. Oh, this book is not banned.
Nobody knows about it.
Well, we usually run off the list of names there, and I can't think of the author's name right now, but it's a book called "Bad Girls of the Bible," and some
Barbara, our friend Barbara.
Anyway, look it up, Bad Girls of the Bible, and it talks about the women who are in the lineage of Jesus, and although it's like, here's all these women who did profound things, like you said, they reclaim their power, and yet, I also kind of see a role reversal too. It's like, these aren't just women, these are not just any women. I like to think these are the early dykes of the Bible.
Right.
They went in and just took over and did what they needed to do. So, it's called Bad Girls of the Bible, and it's a really great read about just different women in authority and position, and then you bring them into the art world also, because you see them with their fierce art and how they manifest themselves just to kind of claim their place in history. And I'm glad we still claim their place in history, because if not, the art world just go away with it. So
this conversation has got me all warmed up and ready to read some stuff that I had missed in the past. One of the things that I find interesting is that they start talking about 20th century religious art and how it starts to change things. And now here we are in the 21st century, and we've got politicians and media people who want us to believe that sexuality never existed anywhere in the world.
Right.
That you just mentioned, I'm surprised that the secret book of Mark has not been banned. It's probably because they don't know that it exists, because...
Well, it's a fragment. It's a page.
Yeah, it's a fragment.
They miss it.
Yes. So
maybe
maybe it's that.
You look it up online.
We start looking at what some people are doing with art. All of a sudden, the statue of David is now something that can't be seen in school.
Right.
That a teacher actually lost, was it a teacher or principal, actually lost their job because they presented it to their students.
And we've seen it.
We were right there looking at it. It is beautiful. So we're in a place now where we really have to understand that that whole idea of control is way out of control. That we've got to understand that people are trying to hide stuff that exists for a reason, and the reason is they don't want you to know. Right. They don't want you to learn. And they don't want you to see that queers have been around since the dawn of time.
Right.
And I think it's a part of it. It's like they're uncomfortable in their own skin. Get comfortable, people.
Yeah.
Be who you are, and just know who you are, and let the rest of folks just enjoy their lives.
Yeah, and that's why Lil Nas X is so powerful.
Love me some Lil Nas X.
Because he's bringing, and I love what he's doing now. He's bringing Christianity to the forefront, like his faith to the forefront, but he's reclaiming the sexual aspect of our faith. And he released his new album cover for his first single, and it's him on the cross being lifted up, but it's all very homoerotic in a lot of ways. But a lot of the church's support of the arts during the Renaissance and after, and even a little bit before, but mainly during the Renaissance, was all very sexual. It was very erotic in nature because they were showcasing the human body.
Right.
They were going back to how the Greeks and the Romans showcased the human body as a way to show our power, like the power of humanity, the beauty that is us as humans, and it's just and I think it's also important for Lil Nas X because he is a person of color, and in Black liberation theology, especially after after slavery and when the Black church started coming into being, sexuality was part of it. Like there was a more of an embrace of the sexual aspect of humans, and then you see how the fetishized nature of African American people, like of dark skin, and the fact that they were you go into showing these bodies on trees and people like being around it, like it's awful, and it's all part of that system of hatred that exists in toxic forms of our theology.
And that happened during the integration of schools. One of the fear tactics was oh, our girls won't be safe.
Right.
So there's two things going on. Oppressed people, we crave joy. We're going to have joy. We're going to find joy. And one of the ways we can do it is with physical touch. One of the ways we can do it is by being together, by loving each other. And so sexuality does sort of thrive in oppressed communities because you haven't figured out how to take it away from us yet. So we're going to get the joy where we can. And there's also such a bonding that now we're all closer and we can stand up to you because we have all of this closeness because we're very touchy physical people. Even in our church, you see more hugging and touching and hand holding and kissing than you do in most mixed gatherings. Well, because we're physical people and we demonstrate love physically. So there is that. But then the other side is not only have we learned to embrace our physicality, but then they've used to weaponize that against us. So all they want is sex, and they're just about sex, and sex is not love, and they're animals. Now, you've heard that recently about gay people possibly, but in the 50s you heard about another group. Yeah. And throughout history you've heard about many groups. And so that's just another tool of oppression. I do want to say this because we're running out of time, so I just want to say this about our scriptural text and a queer lens. The prophet Ezekiel said that his image of God, his vision of God, his dream of God was like the bow in the sky after a rainy day. So Ezekiel had a rainbow God, and so do I. So I love that. And the other thing is, since we mentioned Solomon earlier, if Solomon can have 700 wives and 300 concubines and a one-night stand with the Queen of Sheba, if he can have 1,000 lovers, I get to have one.
Amen.
Next up, we're excited to tell you about our next adventure with our global fellowship. In 2024, we'll be going to where the hills are alive as we explore Austria and Alpine Europe for Gay Oktoberfest. Space is extremely limited, so make sure to go to happeningout.travel/sunshine to reserve your space now.